let's go into the future now and actually make our website scream just super fast because I wanted to go with a next gen website. A lot of people looked at me kind of crazy on one of my past videos when I went from WordPress to a static site design. And I did this mainly for efficiency and speed, but that's not really what this video is about. This video is about not having a server hosting your website through a content delivery network. Kind of insane, right? As it's just spread across the world and it's access. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this, and I'm actually going to touch on 3 different ways that I actually accomplished this. The first way, you can use like GitHub. That's a good one. You could also use Netlify, which is also, they have a free option, so you're not actually spending money with these 2 ones. You could do a storage container with your network of choice, whether that's Google Cloud Platform or AWS. These storage containers can host websites, and if you already have one, you can use it. However, not the best performer. And then finally, using an actual content delivery network and hosting your website on one, which is kind of nuts because those content delivery networks just have data centers all over the world, and automating that and actually getting your website to all those locations in a split second, it can be a little tricky. So I actually wanted to go over that on the desktop and show you my results. But before we do that, check out christitus.com, because whatever I show you on the screen, I could make a ton of clickbait here and say, 400 millisecond load times and whatever it is. It's really the load time that you encounter. So go to christitus.com. Make sure I'm not full of it. It should load almost instantaneously for you. No matter where you click on that page, it'll load quick, really quick. So with that said, now we can get on the desktop. All right, let's kick this thing off with just going to christitus.com, and I'm going to do this in real time so you can kind of see the page load speed. So pretty much instantaneous. You should see the same thing by doing it. My website's broken out in just a very basic categories website. So if you want Linux videos, you could click Linux. It'd go ahead and just show you all the things that are listed under Linux. I also have this tag cloud on the other side if you want to see everything with like PowerShell. I've done a lot of PowerShell type videos where it actually shows all the different things I've done over the years, and I imported this from my WordPress. You'll probably notice a couple things with it. One, I have 2 different ads here. This ExpressVPN and then also my web route ad right here. These are affiliates of the channel, and honestly, I thought, why am I spending all these resources and load time with Google AdSense? Google AdSense did bring about anywhere between $150 to all the way up to $500, I think, on December was one of my biggest months for AdSense. And I got to thinking, it's a horrible user experience. I'm probably going to lose a little money on this, but that's okay. I'll just use my affiliate links. Occasionally, the person might click that and go, hey, you know what? I need a VPN, and I get 3 months free from Chris Titus. They'll click on it, get taken here. If you sign up, I'll get like 20 or 30 bucks, depending on the type of plan you choose. Only reason I bring that up is monetization, as if you can take away AdSense, it was literally costing me seconds in load time, and it was making it kind of sluggish. And I also didn't like where they placed the ads. I was doing auto ads, and you can definitely modify AdSense to only do banner ads, but I wanted to just go do auto ads and see what happens. And auto ads definitely netted a lot of money. But for this, I really wanted this to be a repository where you didn't get bombarded with ads or be in the middle of a long article like installing Hugo and then have some other ad get jammed in here when you're trying to copy and paste from some of my code examples. I think that's horrible. So with that, I decided, you know what, my monetization scheme is totally just to have it pay for itself. I wanted to just pay for what I have going on christitus.com, and that's it. So what I did was all these images, all my ads are hosted on my CDN. Definitely not as lucrative as probably Google AdSense, but I'm okay with that. I think a couple people will probably click on it, and if they do, I'll still make enough money to cover the website, as I probably just need about 2 to 3 people click on this and sign up a month. So If we go to Page Insights, which Google Page Insights is probably the go-to, and you run your test scores. Now, I'll go ahead and analyze this again as it's been a little bit. Let's see if it changes from like a 97 to something else. It didn't. I still got a 97, but very high points, and I'm not perfect, though. There's still a lot of things I can do to improve this speed. And then you can see I could reformat some of my images down here to next-gen formats like JPEG 2000, JPEG XR, or WebP instead of the standard PNG or JPEG file. And that's something that is costing me literally half a second, and then a couple other little things. And then probably the biggest thing here is my static assets. I need to go through and figure out a way, and I haven't quite figured this out just yet, caching content through a CDN, doing this next generation type of serverless design, because it's all static files, so there's no HT access, there's no way to actually say, hey, cache for this long. There's a couple workarounds. I know with Cloudflare there's a setting that I've kind of tinkered around with, but I wanted to make sure I was still getting the best speed. So when I was tinkering around with those settings, I did get this enabled, but at the same time, using that CDN, I was just like, yeah, it didn't perform as well as CDN 77. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to do CDN 77, even sacrificing my cache content. Still turned out pretty darn well, as you see in this one. The next test I did through GT Metrics. I got a B and a B on, I don't know on these scores. Like when I've gotten A's, I've had like load times of like 6 seconds, and it was like, A, 99. And I was like, yeah, but it loaded in 6 seconds. So how does that make any sense? But anyways, a 1.1 second load time, total page size about 300K, and then a request of about 25 requests going out. So very low on the requests, everything across the board. Very, very happy with this result. As you see, I am missing the expires headers, which I've already gone over. That's that caching I was talking about. And really utilizing some of these, I could clean up even further, but needless to say, I wanted to just kind of go through this, and there's still some other things like, here's some big issues with custom.css, and then custom.js is not there. So I'm getting some 404s, which I'm sacrificing 300 milliseconds and 400 milliseconds on the load. So I could probably get this down to half a second. I will probably definitely fix these incorrect references in my thing. But using the waterfall, I saw those. If you have anything that's obviously bad or error, we probably need to actually remedy that and fix it. So definitely do that. I could probably actually touch this and upload it. However, we'll probably do that just to see if we can actually fix this and rerun this test coming back. Same thing on this one. You'll see waterfall test using webpagetest.org, custom CSS, and custom JS for JavaScript are still giving 404. So I'm referencing this somewhere in my theme, and I don't actually have those files on my server, so it'll actually error out and cost me some seconds of load time, or milliseconds of load time in this instance. But still very, very fast. So how did I do this? Now, I went through Cloudflare. You can definitely come in here and do the free caching and everything in here and set that up. You can actually see the load time. I kind of like this feature of Cloudflare during the speed and optimization section of this. You start seeing the first paint without a half a second, and it's fully loaded about 1.1 seconds in. So really, the human, if it's about 1 second, whether it's a half a second, whether it's 1 second, most people aren't going to know the difference. They're going to go, this website is fast. So that's what I was looking for. That's what I got. I could definitely optimize further using some of these things. Now, on the caching side of things, I definitely have some room to grow. Browser cache TTL, doing 1 day would be good. And this would actually work and take off a lot of those errors I was running into. However, I am not using caching with Cloudflare. I am simply using my DNS and forwarding my DNS over to CDN 77. So as far as CDN 77, I'm going to just show like my actual stats here. Right now, most of it is actually cached. There's still a couple things that aren't cached depending on the time and where it's actually coming from. I've actually limited the data centers down as I don't have a whole lot of international traffic. I still have some, but I wanted to go ahead and actually talk to them, and their technicians like, hey, based on your traffic and how much your presence is across the world, I'd recommend culling down a lot of Europe and some of the Asia data centers they have. You can see your hits, misses, cache, non-caches in here, which I've actually done. Here's the actual hits and misses. And as you see, it's kind of gone down over time. Now, this is where the actual website is, and one of the cool things about this is you can specify origin, which is your own web server, or you can specify the actual CDN storage. And this is really neat because I can literally just pull everything from my CDN storages. I don't know other CDNs that do this. I'm sure they exist. I'm sure you can do this, but the CDN 77 made it pretty darn easy for me. If we look at my actual CNAME and SSL, it should issue an instant SSL using Let's Encrypt. So that's kind of cool that they offer this service, and I think that's just bundled in. I think you can actually add your own if you wanted to buy or actually import your own certificate, but needless to say, that's part of the configuration. Is I just set that up. Caching expiration I set to 1 day. This I by default set to about 14 days. I also do an HTTPS redirect as I don't want anything served without it being HTTPS. So everything's served in HTTPS. And you can definitely ratchet this up a little bit. My data centers, I culled this back a little bit as the more data centers you have, and obviously if it's a lower tier CDN, you're not going to have as many data centers as me, but this was right now, it was just too many. I had all these selected and the performance was kind of dodgy depending on where you were. Now, if my content was really stale and I wasn't updating and changing things very often, well, I would probably leave all these enabled, and that way it was just very fast all the time. But since I update my website several times a week usually, I definitely would run into problems having all these going because you'd hit a different data center depending on where you are in the world. There's 38 to populate. It would take at least 38 people in all those locations to populate them, obviously much more than that. But I don't get enough traffic to really warrant utilizing all these data centers. So I culled them back to 3 in the US, 3 in Europe, or actually 4 in Europe, and then 3 over in Asia, Australia, or actually 4 in Asia, Australia. So I actually have 1 in Mumbai, 1 in Hong Kong, and Tokyo and Sydney. So all of these, when I actually push this, I can actually purge my actual whole website. As I was doing an update and really tinkering around with some of my ads last night, I was constantly purging those files, so it was constantly flushing those data centers. And then once I was finished, I would prefetch from those and say, hey, go ahead and populate through these 8 data centers I'm using. And that way, when you're in Mumbai and you go to accesschristitis.com, it'll pull up the same as if you're in the States. It would just be almost instantaneous. So very neat. As far as the integration, what does that look like? So really, it was just setting up a CNAME and literally going to your registrar, typing in www for the CNAME, or you could go ahead and forward your entire root domain, if you like, over to it. And that would just go ahead and populate using this address. So I'd CNAME the www to there, and off I went. Now the storage, I wanted to go ahead and touch on this a little bit. I'm using 40 megs, which is hilarious. My website used to be almost a gig with WordPress. They have rsync, and you can actually do SFTP. So if you're on Linux, you could actually pull up your file browser, connect right into the CDN storage, and drag and drop files into it. As far as this process goes, this is pretty darn simple. It's establishing an SSH key pair, which I've done on the channel before, and then writing a script for that. So I'm going to show that script really fast because I've modified it. Now, in the video where I went from WordPress to static, my script was taking it and putting it in a Google storage container. You could also put it in like an AWS, like S3 and those types of storage containers and do the same thing as Google. But I found this to be a little sluggish. It wasn't nearly as good of a solution as just hosting it directly on a CDN. Pulling up my actual terminal here, let's go into my directory. From my actual root of my website for Hugo, let's say I made a specific file and I wanted to upload that file. So We already touched on the website didn't have that custom CSS and also that custom.js. Let's look at that real fast. And we're just going to add these files and just have them. So .js, custom.js, and then custom.cs under CSS. So let's just add these in the root directory, see if that speeds up those 404 errors. So coming back into our terminal, we're just going to add these into the public folder. And we'll start with CSS. And we're just going to do a listing. Yeah, there's no custom. So we'll just do a touch custom.css. And we'll do a listing again. CSS is there. Now let's take care of that custom.js. Yep, we'll just do a touch custom.js. So we've added some files, and now we just need to upload this to our CDN. So if we go back to our root and nano into this deployment, I'm going to just show you kind of how I did it. Now I have this Google on here, right here. I'm going to actually just delete this. And this is what I'm doing. I'm CDing into the public directory, and then I'm just doing an rsync and pushing this directly to here. Now, you'll notice I have a private key on this computer called CDN77. This is all my credentials, and I have that public key on my CDN77 instance. So I'm able to connect to this immediately through the actual integrated browser. So if I didn't want to use a deployment script, I could actually drag and drop it through my file explorer. But in this instance, I just want to push this out. So I don't actually need to write this. We're just going to deploy this, and here we go. And I'm going to talk through this so you can see how long it takes to deploy to all these data centers around the world. And CDN makes it pretty darn easy. And I'm pretty sure most CDNs can probably do this, but mileage will vary, as I don't even think this is really a thing that many people do. However, I could see it really becoming useful in the future. So here we go. We're hitting deploy. It rebuilt Hugo. We'll go ahead and hit yes. And it's going and uploading right now. As you saw, it went ahead and uploaded all that. And we're going to just check for that CSS custom.css. Just to see if that file's there. As you see, it's just an empty page. That's what we want. So it's still seeing it. We'll take this web page test, and we're just going to go back and rerun the test because I'm curious to see what happens during this rerun of the test. Okay, so we reran the test. Load time is now under 1 second. Let's take a look at that waterfall. And you'll see those actual custom JS and custom CS is now not red and actually just going ahead and loading. So that did shave a little bit off our load times, which is great. So really important to follow the waterfall effect here. But over than that, we should be good. This is pretty amazing. Overall, using the CDN, I'm going to continue doing this for the foreseeable future. I might try up some new different things. But for most people watching this video, just know you can use a CDN storage and utilize it to host your static site if you want. However, a lot of people use GitHub and Netlify because it's a lot easier to set up and deploy. I just kind of wanted to showcase some different ways of doing it and to see if we can really push the envelope as far as web page speed and really what the future looks like with serverless design, as I really think doing a static site and a serverless design is just friggin' amazing. Now that was speeding up a website. Really, I wanted to take this to the next level. A big shout out to Digital Sparky or Matt. He helped me out with some of this and said, hey, here's an idea for you, and kind of helped me along with that. Also, when I did the static site conversion, I had a lot of work ahead of me, and he actually wrote a Python script to clean it up. So big shout out to Matt. I'm going to put his website in the actual description because he is a website coder. He can do a lot of the things I can't personally do when it comes to coding websites. And just a fantastic resource. So if you need somebody like that, definitely check out Matt. Highly recommend him. He's an Aussie, so his time zones are a little funky, but super responsive almost any time I ever talk to him. But definitely check him out. With all that said, though, this was my experience. I really do think this is like the future, because hosting a website through one of these expensive hosts that everyone peddles on YouTube, or hosting your own server, I think this is just kind of archaic type solutions. And I don't think it's really that good, especially the responsiveness of it. And when you bloat it up with a bunch of ads, it just makes for a really bad user experience. Where my website, I think, has the best user experience. All I need to do is find a good artist to really take it to that next level and make it look really good, as it's right now more for functional since I'm an analytical guy. But with all that said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. As always, thank you to all my patrons. Without you, I couldn't make videos like this one, and I will see you in the next one.